Music. Man, it was just right here. Where was it? Here we go. Here we go. Ooh, quick stream. Let's change that. There we go. Let's be good. Okay. We need to work on this one. Do we all remember? We all remember. This cool thing. Well, we need to finish it, but I've been working diligently in the back and progressing on it. Hey people. Hey Avail. Hey Boxer. Hey Boxer. So these are the just sort of stepping through it step by step. Adding light, getting the titles, and then this is like a couple weeks ago. It was this. Maybe it was just last week, but I finally started. Oop. Oh, this is not updated with the latest yet. Okay, well that will definitely miss. That's funny. Okay, so that's interesting. That means these are not fully updated. Well, what can I do about that? I guess I could... Hey, Danny. We can try something. This will be risky. And it won't be as fast as I want it to be. How can I do this? Here we go. So Google Chrome. We need to basically go to my it's lovely. Everything is signed out for no reason. Hello. Okay, that's better. Sorry to be a little discombobulated. My files didn't sync the way they should have, but of course it was syncing many. Syncing many different files, and now I'm just trying to find some way to reactivate what's going on here. Yeah, a lot of stuff just hasn't synced yet. I might be able to log into my drive. What I need to avoid doing is like logging into stuff where everybody can see it. So I have to do all this like off. It'll just take a second now. Oh, it's not even fully updated yet. Oh, that's interesting. You know what? We're gonna have to do something else while we're waiting. So we can't work on the party portrait right now. We're gonna do something else. That's okay. That is why we have multiple projects open. And then like then we find out that the other projects didn't sync either. That'll be what I deserve. No, this looks good. Okay. We'll work on this instead. Sorry, party portrait. Yeah, you always start with the dog. That's funny. Okay, we're taking the Metroid art that we did, and I did do a fair amount of exploring with this off stream. This needs to get... Need to tighten up this line art. Now, one thing that's happening in this image that needs to get changed, and this is subtle. Obviously, this is like, there's some decent lines here. This piece is cool. So, but when you're like me, you sort of, I'm forcing myself to like go beyond like a sort of satisfactory coolness. There's something, even this rough sketch has it a little bit better. Here, I tried to add more detail, and I was also exploring with new brushes. I was not being attached to outcomes when I was working on this. This was sort of like, if I can just sort of make anything that looks halfway decent in Clip Studio Pro, then that was a successful venture, and I definitely did that. But now I'm looking at this and I see potential for a very cool piece. But here's where we need to put on a little bit more of a skeptical, like, artistic lens. What is it that we're trying to say here? And obviously we've got this juxtaposition of Samus, and she's in her space armor or whatever, and she's got little baby Metroid, and like, that's story, that's good. Visually though, let's think about how we can make this the most interesting possible. When I was just sort of, because I was letting myself just sort of freeballing, sort of freestyling what a Metroid concept suit would look like. What I don't like about a lot of Metroid suits is that there's no room for her head in the helmet, given the rest of the proportions. Like, essentially, she's got basically her head, she can't have a neck given the rest of the equation. So I wanted to add enough room and tweak the proportions a little bit so that it felt like it's possible that like a human head could fit in there. And so that involved like thickening things up a little bit and adjusting some things. And this still looks good. But what this definitely also reads as is I want more contrast in the, where does her long hair go? I was thinking about this today. I was like, this is stupid that they give her long hair in like the cartoon or whatever, or in any of the things. Not that I don't have a problem with long hair, obviously, but like, it'd be super impractical. I guess it's not like Bayonetta long, but it is, it's sort of ridiculous to have I don't know, like part of like what when I do these projects and I have to like, let's say this was like a real like Nintendo hired me to do something. One of the things I would think about is like, shouldn't she have short hair? Wouldn't that make more sense? You know, it's like given the, I mean, anybody can do what they want, I suppose, but like hair gets in the way, right? It's impractical. It gets snagged on things. It looks messy if you know, crawl through mud and stuff. It would make sense that it would be cut short. In a sort of, that to me it makes sense at least. So very good critical thinking, Danny. But in this, what I want to do is redraw the line art for Samus and everything else, but especially for Samus, with an eye towards having the suit design be more streamlined and more less like more something that feels like it's more more artificial, because I want that to contrast with the organicness, right, of the Metroid and the surrounding area, like whatever, the living planet kind of vibe, right? So if we have, so right here in this image, and maybe I'm being overly hard on it, I don't think so though. The image, the armor almost has a kind of organic quality to it. You know, it's kind of, it sort of lines up very well with a lot of the anatomical features. And for me, it's easier to draw that way. But after analyzing, taking a step back and like thinking about it, I think that there should be a little bit of a repudiation of the. Now, we still want it to look like a human could fit in there, but I don't want it to feel like what we are looking at are mechanical representations of like human machinery, right? So almost like, did you see how this version is a little more streamlined? And this was the first version I did, right? And then I was like, oh, you know, needs more human bits. So I added a bunch of stuff that like sort of course, like the elbow feels like a joint and stuff like that. Now I'm wondering, that was probably not the right move. And if all I do is just make this head a little bigger, maybe not much bigger, but a little bigger, and then clean up the rest, like that might be it, because this has that sort of streamlined quality. Time for transform. Yeah, I hate to do it. I hate to cheat that way. I think of that as a little bit like cheating, but I'm also okay with it. Okay, looks like these are the lines. Now, I wonder if I should change the music now, because we're doing Metroid, so let me bust that out. A little more suitable. And I don't know how long ago, maybe a couple of hours. But let's also bust out some Metroid references. And this kind of has the look, right? Can I see the whole picture? There we go. not as obviously organic compared to... Man, they just changed everything about her design. I appreciate that I'm not feeling self-conscious about needing it to feel consistent to anything, given that Nintendo themselves are reinventing her appearance with every iteration. So just to compare. We turn this back on. So what I've sketched here, for instance, which is the latest version, feels more organic as far as like the armor design compared to what we have here on the right. And I'm essentially thinking that I went too organic, and then it makes sense to go back to something that feels futuristic. And you know, it's like what we're doing is we're balancing two visual concepts, like futuristic versus like a primal kind of organicness, right? Because I want to heighten the contrast between their two worlds, right? So that's the idea. And so we know we're getting rid of this version. Because I really think it is probably just as simple as making her head bigger here. I'm going to save a new version, and I'm just going to collapse the darn thing, and then enlarge the head. And then we'll just start sort of free tracing with sort of this as the reference without getting too bogged down. Like, we can still change things. I think it's cool to change things. So that's the assignment. And we'll see how far I can go in like an hour and a half or whatever, maybe 2 hours. Would you post time-lapse on YouTube? If it... right now I'm not using Clip Studio Pro. I don't have that properly installed on this computer. I'm on a different... because I'm at my parents' house. Or theoretically, they get a little bit more of a baseline sort of, I don't know, like they get grandma and grandpa time. It's worth it. I was about to say, it's like, oh, they get a better education than at public school. I'm like, probably not. Looks too big. See, this is why I need. See, this is why they invented the ban button. Danny's gonna get banned now. Speaking ill of my... No, just kidding. Yeah, that's too big too. Oh, shit. I think that works. It's not a life sentence. It can always, I guess, be resized again. Yeah, she may need bigger shoulder things. Well, I mean, here they're super big. We could try that out. Bigger shoulder things. These things are way too big too, in my like just her design. It's just always way too big. But these proportions feel humanish. This is compatible with human life. The point is, I want it to look like a human person can fit in there. I may even... I might even like add, can I do this? Like a little bit of like eyeball, like right in there, you know? Like mostly it's reflection, but then there's some eyeball in there. And it has to, if I do that, it has to feel like a real person's eyeball could be there. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if her head is there, kind of has to go like this a little bit. You know, she can have heroic proportions, but has to be grounded. I did not forget to pick up the kids. That would be the first time for everything, but that time is not today. Boy, I went from starting out this morning I always get so disoriented when I'm going from one system to the next. All of the tools are different. There we go. Epic eraser. This computer gets hot too. All right. Okay, I think into this we can just execute some clean lines and go for minimalism. And that may be all that we have to do. Because these proportions look good. And then I'm excited to execute the rest. I had a... here, I'm going to take this and I'm going to flop it so it's a little bit more... maybe flop it, maybe... maybe there's another reference we can also bring up. Something similar. Yeah, this one's cool too. Now this was the one that made me... This is the one that I was riffing off of when we sort of came up with this pose and the concept. And I like this, but I think they went too far with like these straps and other weird things. Like that's... I don't like that either. So it's like, where's the happy medium? Can I open these both up at the same time? And yeah, Danny, you got to work when you can, and because what happens is that stuff gets away from you. I was about to say, starting today, it felt like there was nothing. It's been dead for me for almost 2 weeks. Very minimal work for about 2 weeks now. And then today, they're like, okay, on next Tuesday you're gonna do a job. I'm like, cool. And it's good. It's with a new client. That's good. And then out of the blue, like now Monday and Tuesday are looking like another client wants to book those days, and they haven't yet. And it's like whatever, but it's like that's just how it goes. Like with my work, it's never like one day is just one thing. It always feels like it'll be dead, and then you have to do 2 jobs at once, and then it's dead, and then you're doing 2 jobs at once, and it's like that's super. This is like why my life is chaos. Chaos is because you can't make a schedule around that. It's like being a fireman. You're bored, and then it's an emergency. Okay. Get my tools together. Yeah, feels good. Hopefully the audio is good. I'm doing something different today, obviously with this setup. But this mic is weird. It keeps making like big thumps and bumps, and it's annoying me. So could hardly do worse than that other mic. Unfortunately, that feels like it's the case. I'm going right into details, and I shouldn't, but I'm trying to take it easy on myself right now. So just using the image at the right as a reference for basically how this is supposed to look, at least with the helmet. And then if we run into a section where it's like, oh, that doesn't work for that section, we'll just change it. That's okay. Seems to be what Nintendo does, so if it works for them, it's going to work for us. In having done several fan art kind of renditions of popular iconic characters, yeah, I don't think that geometry is correct. Let's see here. Having done several renditions of fan art of different iconic characters, I've yet to have anybody be like, yeah, that character doesn't look like that, I guess we owe a debt to the fan artists that came before and just sort of established the conceit that, yeah, this is my take. I'm allowed to do it differently. I think if anything, people will appreciate the freshness, and like if you do it well, they sort of see, you know, why the change was made in the first place. Come in. Hey, Mom. Yeah, I noticed she messed up. I'm doing a stream right now, but we can talk if you need to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, thanks, Mom. Good job staying active on Kara. Yeah, I'm trying to. Should it be at an angle? Am I doing this right? I feel like a little bit of a head tilt is okay. Otherwise, it's too rigid. But the hard part is keeping it consistent. Brains are constantly wanting to level out what we're looking at. It's natural. It's fun. To attempt to draw something better, and then it ends up looking worse. Or it feels that way. It starts that way, you know. But push through it anyway. Yeah, there's so much crazy detail, and the geometry has to be. It's going to be unforgiving if I have stuff a little bit off. That's okay, but like if there's big differences in the perspective, they're going to be noticeable. And it's like, it's hard to tell what I'm even looking at in these references. So I might have to clean something up and then decide later on that, hey, that just doesn't look good, you know? I think right now it's important just to get some coverage, like get a start to this. Okay, but so I'm gonna see what I'm even doing here. It's too organic, right? This is too organic. I don't want it to look like a I don't know. I don't want it to look like it's a sort of robotic version of an aquatic creature or something with like blowholes. It needs to have something else. Maybe I should lay off those details for now. Like, I don't want to have like curves like this. It just needs to be angular. We need to find some angularities. What does the other one look like? Knowing that I will come back and fix the helmet later, I think it's just important to say, okay, come back to that later. Work on something else until then. Yeah, it's okay. Like there in this, I don't need a perfect reference. A perfect reference is not it. It's not what I need, and it's not what I'm looking for. Not right now. Yeah, part of the fun is like, can I design this in a way that accomplishes what I want, but also feels fresh? Like we have an opportunity here to like flex a little bit of design skill, right? Why not go for that? What was the most complex character you worked on for a client? The those characters in Apex were extreme. I'm trying not to get too sidetracked, so I'm not gonna pull it up right now, but some of them were extremely complex. And yeah, very interesting geometries. So like the character Newcastle, for instance, had a lot of geometric armor that was sort of difficult to sort out. But those characters were fun to draw, at least, and I didn't have to draw them perfectly. They only needed to be fairly fairly accurate representations at a glance. I still drew them really well, and I had a lot of practice. So it was like day one, I was probably drawing them pretty sucky, but like on day 24, I could draw them like perfectly, you know? Yeah. Quick save, because this program crashes a lot. Thing like that. Don't know what the area in between This is like too retro of a look, so that's... I mean, it's good. I like the retro stuff, but I guess we have to allow ourselves to, when necessary, embrace that kind of bib look. Oh, hey, ST Multi-Shadow Live. Very good. Okay, hey, well, we'll call you Zayla for the sake of consistency. Welcome back. I'm drawing Metroid stuff today. Maybe that's what this will be, is some sort of tube. Feels consistent. I'm good. How are you? Anyway, given that now next week looks to be busy, I have to be as proactive as possible on this stuff. Well, I can be, right? See, that looks like that was bad perspective. Subtle ways that things can wrap around can change their geometry. Feels like it's just so unsure what is supposed to be in these areas. So I can just sort of fudge it like it's a bunch of cables for now. Because I will probably... Well, it's like, of course, I'll just come back to that and fix that, but for now, it is sort of sparking the, well, what is that going to be question. Maybe I can just make that a triangle. I don't know. One of these things, you know? So Samus is looking at the Metroid, which is... Metroids are like bad guys in the game, but at the end... The Metroid is like the goal of the game is to get back the Metroid, right? Or at least in Metroid 2. So apparently this is very cool. In Metroid 2, which was a Game Boy game, the original Game Boy, in Metroid 2, she goes, someone's stolen the Metroid again, so they go, she goes to get it back, and then at the end of it, she gets the baby Metroid that joins her. And then in Super Metroid, you know, stuff happens, and then baby Metroid grows up and like saves the day at the end. A little bit of a spoiler. Yeah, I've never played it myself, but I love the aesthetic. You know, I grew up with Nintendo Power and like seeing all these cool, it's like obviously super involved game. Like when I was a kid, we would get the Nintendo Power magazine coming in. And it would have all this cool, like the maps and the area breakdowns and enemy breakdowns and talk about weaknesses or what, you know, strategies. And it was so cool. And, you know, I didn't have the game. But that didn't mean, like, I couldn't do some imagining, you know, while I was flipping through the magazines, right? For me, the experience of, like, pretending I was playing a video game in my head, just from what I could get from the magazine, was as good as anything. Here. Let me flip this. Okay, I don't love the helmet. We'll definitely revise that, but I'm going to move on from it and just focus on some of these other parts. I like some of what I see. Not all of it, but some. And so the story here is a little bit of like a mother and child kind of dynamic, sort of being, and that was sort of like the intent of the story of Metroid 2 and then Super Metroid, is you were meant to have this sort of, initially like the Metroid was just this thing that you were supposed to get, and then it becomes something that becomes more like a parent-child relationship. And so Samus being a girl, I think it's a cool thing to sort of allude to some of that in this piece. And it's super appropriate too. I want some negative space in here, so I'm going to cheat some of this a little bit. If I can. Do a little quick save. Yeah, despite my design hacks, these are, it's all reading as Metroid. Something like that could be cool. Hopefully if it's good, they see it. They, I definitely want people to see the good pieces, and then not the bad ones. And if we can just limit the bad ones to few and far between, I think that's the good call. Somehow that kind of works. Doesn't work great, but it does kind of work. The stream may not go much longer. I noticed my wife is called. I'm curious. Yeah, I say it works. We'll see. There are going to be more changes. This is not a. I don't expect. I'm just looking at a few things here. Like, oh, there's just a lot that is not being consistent. It's hard to get a character in a rigid suit to have the kind of like softness that I'm trying to find here. But right now it's almost about just trying to achieve a like a consistent geometry, so that later when I do make changes, I'll at least have something It's like self-consistent to work with, right? I always like those RoboCop-looking, joint-looking things. I'm being very sort of non-committal in my decision making. Like, I'll make a stroke go one way, and if it doesn't look good, I'll just make it go in the opposite way and see what that looks like. I just feel like we have to explore. They luckily don't have to redraw it a lot and have the model saved up. We have something like that. That's cool. You know, it's like whatever. Some of this stuff looks random. Could be cool, but it works, yeah. I mean, part of my theory is like, if I can't decide what costume is accurate or whatever, I wonder if hardcore fans would notice that. I don't think, I think if I draw it with enough conviction, they talk about this thing called the rule of cool, and generally if things are cool, people will forgive them. For, like, you know, they had to reinvent. I mean, every Iron Man movie had a different Iron Man model. You know, he was constantly getting iterated. And it's like, yeah, there's like probably like, you know, a dozen guys on the internet that were like, yeah, that shouldn't be like that. But it's like, it's not about that, you know? So it's like, if I'm doing this and people are concentrating on the outfit, then I've lost, right? But it's like, part of what I'm also going to do is like tell the story with light. So, So like the Metroid itself is going to glow and it's going to give like this cool, basically all the focus is going to be exactly where I put it. So it's not, even though I'm drawing like all these little designs and these things that will catch light and do things, that doesn't mean anything. Like if I don't put light on it, no one can see it, right? So if people are drawn to like quote unquote details or mistakes, then that's on me for letting them see that. I don't have to do that. I can throw it into darkness or black or something. And theoretically, I only have to draw one half of her, and then the other side, I just have to keep consistent. So let's just see if we can... It's true also that the hand is... she only has one hand, at least as far as this design goes. I wonder if I should do one of these. It's fairly consistent. And this is funny, like I am being reminded that I do want to try and have some sharp angles. Because I want it to contrast with the squishiness, right? The Sector, yes. Welcome. I was just saying I want the design of the armor, which can be like an arbitrary design mostly, but I don't want... I want the rigid inorganicness, the artificial futuristicness, it has to contrast with like the translucent jelly-like squishiness of the Metroid baby, right? So there can't be squishiness. I want the sort of like qualitative, like materiality kind of contrast, right? Because it's like we have the story. The story is just, you know, finding a helpless creature that is theoretically like the most powerful, the most powerful being in the universe or whatever, is like this Metroid thing or whatever, like whatever the story is, right? And here it is in baby form, and it's helpless, and Samus like the jelliness of the Metroid, which is its own kind of like fragile. You know, and you kind of got to wonder, is like, did they think of this stuff when they were coming up with a story, or did they just sort of like wing it, you know? Because it's like sort of an involved story, better story than like a lot of video games would have at the time. It's not the best hand I could do, so let's try that again. Hi, Kiki.
I'm gonna go potty, so make sure to listen.
Okay, I will keep an ear out.
Maybe unplug one of the ear pods so
All right.
that you can also hear your music.
That's a good idea. Yep. Daddy duty. Now, it isn't that this is a bad hand, but there's a lot of information somehow in the gesture. I'm definitely trying not to mess things up. That's pretty much it. They're good kids and a good family. Do what I can to not mess that up. It's like being, ultimately it's like I recognize I've been dealt a good hand, so you gotta try not to mess that up. But anything can happen. Anything can happen. Sometimes when things are good, that's the most dangerous time. Everybody lets their guard down and takes risks that they shouldn't, Take it for granted. Don't ask me how this anatomy can work, but maybe it does. It's like, that's the question, like, how do these armor pieces fit together if she is, like, crouching over, right? All right, guys, I need just 1 minute. We'll be right back. All right. Had to do a little wiping. Let's see here. Now let me think here. All right, we have a a good but shrinking window here to do things. Let's see here. Okay. Let's go another 30 minutes. I think we can budget that. What will be... We have to think about, like, okay, light that is coming off of the Metroid will reflect on things. It's like, where do we want those reflections to sort of focus themselves? What happened to this pen? Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you're referring to the question of, like, where in the hell... Where and how do these armor plates articulate? Obviously not a ton of room for... things to get squished around, right? Ah, okay, something... Okay. Yeah, I hit some button and then it, the opacity went down. That's what happened. Okay. I might start a new layer for her under her lower half. New layer. Oh, I picked up the wrong pencil. That's the other half of the problem. Jeez. Okay, it's all making sense now. I had multiple pencils out for not a very good reason. I definitely have run into problems in the past where I'm like, oh my god, I can't find my stylus. And so you can't draw without it. You know, you can't do anything if you don't have like a stylus, right? So one of the first things I did was buy like a backup, a few different kinds, start experimenting with that stuff. You don't want to be without your tool. I don't know what this should look like, but I don't mind how this looks. This knee may end up being obscured by some of these foreground rocks. And I'm cool with that. Yeah, there's gonna be some integration in the environment. So the Metroid and the environment that it's in are going to feel more similar than... So what's going to feel out of place is Samus in this organic environment, and or the Metroid and the environment compared to Samus. This is a sort of like worlds collide kind of theme. Does that make sense? And that should always be something you're looking for. If you're making like a standalone piece and you really want to give it impact, you have to think about what are the... It's not just like what the characters are saying or what they're doing. It's visually how can we reinforce the theme. And the answer is always basically contrast, but then it's like contrast between what? Okay, I'm not gonna say it's like done, but for some reason that leg feels like it actually works to me. That's tricky, drawing just any kind of knee or anatomy in that pose, super difficult. So I'm gonna be okay with how that looks right now and move on to some of the other sections. That's pretty cool. We turn off, can we zoom in and like turn off this? Yeah, that's, I mean, it's feeling like some pretty solid line art. Ooh, yeah, the leg looks good. It had to fire up some of my artistic superpowers there. I mean, yeah, I'll be honest, when I was doing the the I mean, I should just show it on stream, if I can. The Final Fantasy. Okay, here we go. So I think this is where we're at right now. I put this on the Discord, so it's not going to shock anybody. But this is the pose. But it's you know, I know I can make this, you know, look good now. But like it was, you know, there's some parts where I'm like, maybe I should have made a different decision about this or that. You know, they're reserving some judgment. But it's like I have to strike a balance between like honoring what I like about the original aesthetic while also sort of putting it into this kind of, you know, cinematic 80s/90s aesthetic that I've been sort of doing. Let me put this away. But the fact that it took so much effort to get that one to work, that's kind of like a simple, you know, sort of like a simple pose. Oh, one thing I need to do, I have to make a decision about this sword because I was realizing it's like I don't have the thickness is about right, but it needs to be like 20 to 30% longer, which means it's going to get off the so either I shrink the character down or I just leave it the way it is. Or maybe you guys can let me know. Does this sword look like it needs to be longer? I might do like a test. Yeah, Cloud, yeah. So we'll see. But, you know, luckily I have this to work on in the meanwhile. And we can keep busy with this. And guys, I'm going to go another 20 minutes. We'll see how things are looking then. Today, no clients. Nope. Just basically dad duties. Get my kids home and get them into a bath and stuff. But we don't want to keep them here too late. Because typically we do. Because I'll be streaming until like 9 p.m. if I could. And then it's like, you know, that's great. Except, you know, the kids are unwashed and... No, they don't end up unwashed. They just end up taking a late bath. Which is not, you know, great for everybody's schedule. But it's funny, it's like, no matter what, because, you know, we're constantly like, okay, we got to get the kids to bed earlier. So we'll move up dinner time, we'll move up bedtime and bath time and then bedtime. But no matter what, they end up coming down from their bed and we're too sleepy to fight them off. And so they'll like hang out with us in bed, watch TV, do whatever, and they'll be up past their bedtime no matter what we do. It's like there's no... Even when we try to get ahead of it, and like, okay, we're not gonna give in today. You know, earlier bedtime, early, and then we just end up staying up later than ever. I might try to give a sense that the shoulder on this end is like curved up more. Bedtimes used to be better when there weren't any electronics or instant communication. I think that's true. It definitely the ability to be like, I mean, again, this comes back to like my work and my schedule, but like, it's not uncommon for me to have to be working till 2 a.m. It happens all the time. These days, I try to not work late, and I try to just get up early. but it's still like I'll be up at 4 and I'll be working and stuff like that. So that's the honestly, that's the biggest thing working against like having a healthy quote unquote schedule for my family is I don't have any kind of way of predicting when I'm going to be pulling an all-nighter. But it's like a requisite part of my job. It's like being a fireman. You have to be willing to like, okay, turns out we're not getting any reprieve for the next 3 days, so guess who's not sleeping? The compensation for that is generous though, so it balances out. It ends up being worth it, quote unquote. But there are sacrifices that get made. You have to make the right sacrifice, right? I tried Blender recently. No. Blender. So Blender seems like an amazing program. But it's like what I'm trying to do is make Blender up here. But I mean, related. We were literally just the other day watching Flow. That I guess it's amazing. It's not really that amazing, but it is a cool movie that won an Academy Award using open source software and like no budget. That's pretty amazing. But I guess that was made in Blender, right? And so that to me that's extremely cool. But also worrisome. There's no real barriers to entry for anybody who wants to. And that's a problem for like me and my clients essentially because of the just this new reality that anybody can, with a fairly good desktop, so with minimal sort of off the shelf and open source requirements, you can put together basically competition is going to skyrocket with these new developments. They're not even new. It's just sort of like now it's the floodgates are open for the future. Like anybody and everybody can and should be trying to tell their story, using this stuff, right? I mean, Flow was awesome. If you sort of know, like, I was sort of like, okay, it's like, this is probably more impressive to people who don't understand that a lot of this stuff is like, this is probably more kit bash than anything. Like, I'm like, okay, anyway, the ability for Blender to make a something beautiful is well demonstrated here, but well, I shouldn't talk about it. I'm not a Blender genius, but I had a feeling that maybe more credit was due to people who didn't work on the movie than the people who did, if you catch my drift. It's not like the movie was like generated via Gen AI. It's not like that, but it is also sort of like probably a lot more is owed to the open source materials and the development teams that make Blender work. But no shade to the creator and the people who worked on the film. Okay, this is going to be death for me. The specific geometry of this gun arm is going to be important, because that has to feel right. That might be tricky for me, but I'll give it a shot. See how far we can get. This all might look like I'm making the same line and again and again and again. I kind of am, but it kind of isn't. And it's hard to articulate, but some lines feel right and some don't. And then when you nailed it, you get that vibe. Okay. Did I ever in real life haters like I did? Maybe. I don't think it was ever I didn't tend to. But that's not I think it's probably more the norm to have, you know, vocal detractors and stuff like that. I had more of a I had a certain, well, I mean, if we're talking about like in high school and stuff, I had a more of like a edginess, like misfitness, where I kind of more or less got along with everybody by sort of being a cynical asshole. I noticed that a lot of my friends had a lot of issues, social issues with other people, but none of that tended to extend to me. One thing I've observed, and I think is true, is a lot of people who, a lot of what is sort of like observed as being like, okay, this person is bullying me, etc., etc. A lot of bullies are just bad at making friends, and they actually sometimes want to be friends, and they're sort of just doing that kind of weird, like, toxic masculinity kind of trait. Anyway, upon reflection, I realized that actually some of my best friends in high school were themselves bullies. Not to me, but like just sort of in general, like they had that sort of mentality. But instead of like getting into that, somehow I made friends of them instead. And bullies are very predictable in that they sort of crave friendship and are, when they do have friends, they can be fiercely loyal, you know. So it's weird. But if anybody who was paying attention to me in high school, I was able to make friends with. your hater wants to be your friend. It may not be like that, but they might use sort of you as an example of like publicly demonstrating how, you know, I'm not you, I'm different than you. Maybe they felt similar to you and they wanted to assert that difference in a public fashion. You know what I mean? Something about you in relation to them sort of gave them that sort of standing from their perspective to be like, I'm an authority on whether this person is in or out, right? But they can't really do that without having some sort of relationship. You know, and that's just like one angle on stuff. But all of my friends in high school were basically misfits. My close friends were essentially misfits. Like they were too cool to be dorks and too dorky to be cool. But we were all, you know, sort of smart and clever and felt like we knew better than everybody else. You know, if I would have been sort of like categorized as like an incel edgelord or something for a good amount of high school until I was not an incel, but you know, none of that was, you know, one day randomly some chick is like, yo, I'm into you. And you're like, cool. And that was that. I think I was popular enough. I'll tell you, I went from very sort of like feeling not popular at all to like upon reflection, like, because you know how people will like, I don't know, do they do this anymore? Do people sign yearbooks? Like you pass out your yearbook at the end of the school year and everybody signs it. Okay, well, you know, my yearbook was very full of people who were keen to say one thing or another. Yeah, and you know, it was difficult for me to talk to girls, especially in like freshman year. By the end of senior year, people seemed to love me. Probably because I was super handsome and stuff like that, but one day I'll have to bring up some of those old photos of Max in high school. They'll give some context because I just looked like a total stud. Whether or not I was is a debatable matter, but you know, but I didn't really look like the kid you'd make fun of. I'd look more like the star of the movie that everybody would want to be in the movie with or something like that. But you know, is that fair? That's not how life should be, right? It's not like I did anything super special to earn that. It's that's just luck, like genetic lottery, right? Stuff like that is a factor though, like how life plays out. Like if you need help, people are more willing to, you know, trust you or help you if they, you know, think you're not hideous, I suppose. But that flipped around too because it was like I remember like in 8th grade. No, even in 9th grade, so like freshman year. I was like 14. I was like walking down the the hallway, and like girls were like, ew, and they were like getting up on the wall to like express how, you know, disgusted with me that they were. Maybe that was because I was really ew. Maybe that was because they actually liked me. Because girls can be weird like that. And yeah, there was a chick who was like, "You're ugly, you're ugly." You know, I remember that. I was like, "Girl, you're crazy." Like, what did I didn't even do anything. And then like 2 years later, she was like all over me. You know, but I was like, you know, one one thing I do notice, maybe she was in denial. Maybe she saw like what was, you know, chicks have sixth senses about stuff. You know, I was just a confused like whatever dude. I'm just like, okay, you know, don't talk to me then. um, but as for me, I was only with the same two friends for my 4 years of high school. I mean, that's rough, but it's also sort of like high school feels like it's the only thing that matters, and it's just one of those things you have to get through. And um, you know, I don't know how to explain where I went right with like myself socially back then, but like a lot of it had to do with like me sort of being open to sort of going to parties and getting drunk and getting high and smoking and stuff like that, and being willing to take a risk. When you're willing to take a risk with people, it's like a bonding ritual. People feel they can trust you if you do a mutual bad thing. Does that make sense? And especially when I was a kid, like being bad was cool, right? You know, it's like one thing I would always suggest to people, like if you're in a new place, like just carry a lighter with you, right? Because if you, is it okay? I'm focused more on your dream than having a girlfriend. Yes, because a girlfriend before like you're even ready to, like if you don't have two dimes to rub together. First off, if you can find a girl who will love you even if you don't have two dimes, then that's awesome. But honestly, you can't do much in the world if you're constantly going out on dates. You should definitely be, yeah, you should definitely be focused on like getting as much traction with your goals now as you can. Whatever your goals are, it applies to anybody because girls are a big distraction. And then the girls are going to be the first ones to complain about like, how come you're not further along in life when they've been sucking up all your time for like 3 years, you know? It's like, how come we're still like in this crappy apartment? How come you don't have a better car? It's like, girl, because you make me take you out on dates and get like, you know, if you if I didn't know you and I could focus on my own shit and then come back to you in 3 years, how do I put the pause button on you? You know, it's like, oh my gosh, then you know, but the sacrifice is that you are basically an incel for as long as you have to do this stuff. But you know, that's part of the productivity equation. All right, maybe I can borrow just a little bit more time. See how far we can get with this leg. Because I know I said I would stop at 6:30, and it's 6:30 now, 6:33 now. If you had a girlfriend right now, she'd probably be jealous of all the time you're spending on your projects. I feel like there should be like butt armor going behind. Don't be quick to extend your liabilities. Hey,
Bobby got it injured.
what happened? Okay.
Yeah, running on the floor, then I think he told
Okay.
maybe he hurt his leg.
Okay. My son injured himself, so I gotta go. That'll be the end of the stream. Catch y'all later.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Adios.